That was a lot less drama than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to spend hours on this. I mean, it looks okay. A pleasant time of day to you, friends. Yes, that's plastic wrap. This roof leaks. In the last episode, we discovered that the cylinder walls of this M54B30 were in great shape. And I told you that that was one of the things that I was looking for before declaring that this was a potentially viable engine. I am realizing that I didn't tell you about all the other gates that this engine must pass before I am comfortable using it in the Grey Lady. So, let's go through my "it's good" checklist. First, I'm going to check the rod and the main bearings on this engine to make sure that they are not excessively worn. Excessive wear to those bearings means that there could be damage to the crankshaft, and if that's the case, this engine is not worth the time to rebuild it. 2. We need to measure the cylinder bores and the pistons to make sure that they are within specification. If they're not, this engine is a ticking time bomb. And given the amount of work that I'm going to have to do to refurbish this and put this in the car, I definitely don't want to do it twice. 3. We're going to be testing the block. This is an alu-sill engine. Alu-sill engines don't like to overheat. If it has been overheated, it will have warped, either on the block or on the head, possibly both. So I'm going to be checking the block and the head for straightness to make sure that, well, we're putting together an engine that will last. Finally, the last thing that I'll be checking is the cylinder head itself. As I said in a previous episode, if the valves are bent, which they're not, I could potentially just reuse other valves. But if the valve guides are worn, which is what the valves actually go in and out of, then it's going to require some serious machining work to get that fixed, and no machine shop anywhere near here has any availability in the coming months. So I'm not gonna do that. Hopefully that clears everything right up. Now you can watch for these tests in this and future episodes of the Project M54 series. That's what we're calling it, by the way, the Project M54. Now, let's get started. If you've not seen the bottom end of an engine before, let me take you through a brief tour. This is the crankshaft. It's got big lobes on it. It's like the camshaft, but bigger. Instead of opening valves, the combustion that occurs in an engine forces a piston down and applies rotational force to this crankshaft. The crankshaft on this side is attached to the accessories. On this side, it's attached to your transmission. It's got to be pretty big, robust, all those good things. But it's metal, and it's in metal. So how doesn't it explode? For that, we've got bearings. And I'll show you that in just a second. Let's take one off. There are two different types of bearings on the bottom end. There are rod bearings, these, and then there are main bearings, these, which I did not take off yet, but we'll get there. In our evaluation of this engine, we're going to check how the rod bearings look, we're going to check how the piston clearance looks, so let's get right to it. So, for example, this is cylinder 3. This actually looks great. There's no obvious signs of any real damage. I mean, there's some score marks, but that's actually expected. That's fine. They are actually very thin, so it hasn't gotten through to the second layer yet. I'm pretty happy about this. Let's take out the piston and see what the top side bearing looks like. You have to be very careful because you don't want to scratch the crankshaft. It gave birth! And here's the piston. Let's have a look. With the topside rod bearing, you're always going to have more wear. But this is still looking great. We've worn through the initial layer of the bearing, but we haven't gone through to the metal yet. We've got some scratches and stuff like that, but again, this is looking just fine. Let's continue. Let's do cylinder 4. Okay. Oh no, the rod bearing has come free! We have cylinders 3 and 4 removed. Let's move the engine a bit. Cylinder 1. There we go. God Damn it! I had my hand in cylinder 5, not 6. I mean, it looks okay. So, here we go. Cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Where's the 7th one? Just kidding. Now the next step is to take these and do some measurements and see how they're doing. But before we do that, there's a matter to attend to here. So, I bought a tool that will ostensibly help us remove this crankshaft. It is on there with minimum 400 Newton meters. Approximating rust and age. Well, we've got a bit more than that. But, you know what they say, you gotta give it a go, right? Do they say that? Does anyone say that? This is my Craftsman gun. It has allegedly around 300 pound-feet of torque, but we'll see. Ha ha! Ow! Oh my God! Holy shit, that worked! This ain't no Milwaukee, boys and girls, but this gets it done. All right, well, that was a lot less drama than I thought it was gonna be. There is one problem. I can use this gun to take the bolt off. I cannot use this gun to torque it. This tool is actually really cool though. It comes with another component, which we're going to use right now to get the harmonic balancer, the crank pulley, whatever you want to call it, off of the engine. And this is basically just a press. Oh, it wasn't even really attached. Okay, well, wow, all of that, honestly, all of that was way, way simpler than I expected it. That's a lot of good news that I didn't really expect to happen. I thought I was gonna spend hours on this, and I probably will on the other side, you know, when I'm putting it back on. But this is so cool. Thanks, Craftsman. You did it. That's honestly incredible. Well, that was a lot of excitement. Honestly, I am thrilled. I'm gonna throw some completely made up numbers at you. This saved me 115 hours. That's completely made up, which is fine. Now that we took some of the rod bearings off, the gloves come off as well. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna run my finger along these bearing surfaces just to see how smooth they are, if I can feel any scratches or nicks or imperfections. And I haven't actually done this yet. Like, this isn't scripted, this isn't me like, ha 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 ha, like, I wonder what we're gonna find. No, I have not done this. We're gonna find out right now together whether this crank, and by extension this block, are f***ed. That's smooth. That's smooth. That's smooth. That's smooth. I'm gonna move the engine now. That's smooth. And that's smooth. Holy shit! Understand me when I say that this is an incredibly lucky evening. Not only was I able to get the crank pulley off without fighting it for too long, all of the rod bearing surfaces, like, they're great. They're smooth as glass. To add to the fact that this engine's cylinder walls are smooth as glass, I mean, I hate to get optimistic about it, like an engine that just sat in a yard for, you know, a year. But like, maybe this is gonna be the engine that drives the X5. I mean, who knows about the head? Who gives a shit about the head? The head, we can find another head. But like, maybe the head's fine too. I don't know. I'm screaming. I'm really excited. You know what I think this deserves? This deserves a nice beer on a Sunday night. Cheers, friends. I don't really drink a lot of beer, but I think this warrants it. I had a belief that things were gonna go well tonight. And so I decided, why not bring a beer with you? Just in case. And, well, they have. So, cheers. All right, well, now we just have the rest of the engine to take apart. That should be easy, right? Before taking the rest of the engine apart though, I decided to pay some attention to the pistons. Our job is to take apart these pistons so that we can do some measurements, make sure that there is no unnecessary wear, and then we'll start putting them back together and they'll be ready for assembly. First thing that's interesting about the M54B30. On many BMW engines, the connecting rod is made as one whole piece, like so, and then during the manufacturing process it's broken apart. So you'll actually have uneven edges here. They're jagged, right? But they fit together like perfect Lego pieces. The 2.5 liter version of this engine, the M54B30 follows this same pattern. On the B30, for some reason, they are cast as two pieces. Just a quick correction there. The M54B30 connecting rods are cast, but the M54 3 liter, like the one I'm rebuilding, are forged. So, here's the connecting rod, and here's the piston head. The thing that connects the two is something called the wrist pin. It's right here. Let's take it out. There's a clip just in here that you just have to lever out. Make sure to keep a finger on it so that it doesn't go flying. There we go. So you only need to take one of them out. I use an 11mm socket to help me take it out. One of the first checks that you're going to want to do is you take this wrist pin here and you put it directly into the connecting rod. And it should go in pretty smoothly, like it has, and there should be no play whatsoever. And there is no play whatsoever. It don't move. Goes in smoothly, but no play. The wrist pin, no problems. No play whatsoever. Wrist pin. I am pleased to say that all of these connecting rods and wrist pins are good. And I already checked cylinder number 2, so now it's time for me to put them into bags because I don't want them to get lost or damaged. Oh wait, I have to take the photo. Right guys? You know what photo I'm talking about. It's the photo that everyone who's ever taken an engine apart takes. All right, there we go. Okay, now we can put everything back away. I am going to leave the rod bearings out because I want to take a close look at that in a second. So here's an example for you. Out of the 3 layers of material, the upper cylinder 1 rod bearing has worn through one of them and is starting to wear through the second. If I had to guess, I'd say that this engine has something to the tune of maybe 150,000 miles. To my European viewers, that may sound insane. I mean, that's almost 200,000 kilometers, but higher mileages are not very uncommon here in the United States. I want to put this engine together and have it as fresh as possible because I want the engine in the X5 to go for maybe another 150,000 miles. Now that we've seen the rod bearings, let's see the main bearings. Before we take off the main bearings, I actually want to take off the timing case so that once we do remove the main bearings and a couple of other things, we can actually take the crankshaft out of the engine and just have the block. That's the timing case off. We'll give that a thorough cleaning before it comes anywhere near this engine again. Okay, timing chain. Oil pump sprocket with the oil pump chain. I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. You know that scene in one of the Lord of the Rings movies where Frodo and Sam are walking out of the Shire and then Sam suddenly stops and says, you know, if I take one more step, this will be the furthest I have ever been away from home? Yeah, well, if I take one more step, this will be the furthest I have ever gone in on an engine. I have done just about everything else that we've done so far. I've never removed the crankshaft. I've never stripped an engine down to the bare block. I've gotten pretty close, but I've never done it to this extent. So I'm very excited. Let's do this. If you're curious what's happening, I really ought to have taken off the rear main seal cover before I mounted the engine. Or at least mounted it with more space to take off the rear main seal. Since I didn't, this is the consequence. I have to use annoying tools to get it out. Here's the rear main seal cover. And that's the rear main seal. Let's see what these main bearings are. They're on there pretty good. That is by design. Okay. Whoa! Okay. This is not a happy bearing. I'll show you in a second once we get there. I did take the woodruff key off. It looks like the side that does not have a thick border is the side that faces the engine. The side that has a thick border faces the outside. Are you ready to take that one next step? I am. With the main bearing caps all removed, let's take off the crankshaft. Oh, it's a heavy bugger. Oh my God, I just drop it. Oh my God. The main bearing has 7 caps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Number 6 is a thrust bearing. I haven't quite figured out how to take this off yet, but I just need to look at the manual. I'm sure it has detailed instructions. This bearing, this is this main cap 1. We've got some pretty significant scoring, honestly. This is not good. This does support my theory of this engine being about 150,000 miles, but I'm glad I got in here because either this engine was like starved for oil or there was just oil contamination or something like that, because these are bad. This one's like the only okay one. This is bleak, honestly. I'm glad I took this apart because I don't think that this would have lasted very long. Let's have a look at the main bearing journals. Let's do the finger test. 1 is good. 2 is good. 3 is good. 4 is good. 5 is good. 6 is good. And 7 is good. Okay, well, I guess the main bearings were doing their job, because these main bearings look terrible, but the crankshaft is fine. So, job done, I guess. Well, we're going to pause it right here for this episode. For those keeping score at home, I think that we can safely check the first item on our "it's good" checklist. While the rod bearings and the main bearings do show varying signs of wear, it looks like they were the ones who took the brunt of the abuse, and the crankshaft looks mint. Next week, I'm going to try to knock out items 2 and 3. I have some precision measuring instruments, and I'm going to try to measure everything that I can get my hands on. If everything looks okay, we can get started on reassembling the bottom end, and I'll show you how to gap piston rings and check clearance on main and rod bearings, and how to torque everything up to spec by the book. With that said, thank you so much for watching and following along with this series. If you found this series interesting, you should share it with somebody who might also find it interesting. It really helps grow the channel and ensures that my videos are being shown to people who, might enjoy them. So that would be cool. Special thanks as always to my Patreon subscribers. They rock. Really, they do. And of course I'm going to plug my Instagram. You should go look at that. Anyway, that's all I got for this week. My name is Sam, this is the Gray Lady, and this is Skelly's Garage. We'll see you next week.